Ravi had always dreamed of a quiet home away from the city noise. After months of searching, he finally found a small house at the edge of town. It was perfect. The house had a small garden, a white fence, and a big backyard where he could plant flowers. Best of all, it was outside the local homeowners association, or HOA. Ravi liked the freedom of making his own decisions without anyone telling him what to do with his property. The first few days were peaceful. He unpacked his boxes, arranged his furniture, and spent his mornings planting flowers. He painted the fence a soft blue, imagining how cheerful it would look against the green lawn. He even set up a small vegetable garden. Life was calm, and he felt happy for the first time in years. But 3 days after moving in, a letter arrived that changed everything. The envelope had a fancy HOA logo and a name Ravi had never heard before, Karen. Ravi opened the letter with curiosity, but the words inside made his heart race. The letter claimed that Ravi was violating HOA rules. It demanded that he stop certain activities, remove his colorful fence paint, and comply with neighborhood standards. The letter warned him of legal action if he did not follow these demands. Ravi read it twice, confused. How could this woman tell him what to do when he lived outside the HOA boundaries? At first, he felt a wave of anger. How dare someone threaten him for something he had every right to do? Then he took a deep breath. He knew that reacting impulsively could make things worse. Instead, he decided to act wisely and legally. Ravi called Miss Patel, a local attorney who specialized in property disputes. She was known for her calm but sharp approach to legal problems. Ravi explained the situation and showed her the letter. Miss Patel smiled as she read it. "Ravi," she said, "this woman has no legal authority over your property. You are outside the HOA's control. They can write letters, but they cannot enforce rules here. You have the law on your side." Hearing this brought Ravi relief, but he also realized he needed to act quickly. Karen seemed determined and might escalate her threats if ignored. Miss Patel advised him to gather evidence and document everything carefully. This included his property deeds, local government maps, and any communication from Karen or the HOA. The next day, Ravi started organizing his documents. He pulled out the property deed and compared it to HOA maps. It clearly showed that his house was just outside the HOA boundary. He also saved screenshots of any public posts Karen had made about controlling nearby properties. To his surprise, some posts showed she had tried to interfere with neighbors outside her authority before. Ravi realized that the situation was bigger than just him. Karen had a history of overstepping her boundaries. He could see that confronting her legally could protect not only his home but also prevent her from harassing others in the future. After compiling all evidence, Ravi sent a polite email to the HOA board. He explained that he lived outside their jurisdiction and attached all official documents as proof. He also requested that any further communication be done in writing, avoiding unnecessary confrontations. For a while, there was silence. Karen did not respond, but Ravi knew this meant she was planning her next move. Miss Patel reminded him to remain calm and not take her silence as a victory. "In cases like this," she said, "those who believe they are powerful will often act more aggressively if they think they can intimidate you." Ravi spent the evening thinking about his next steps. He knew he could respond in anger, but that would only escalate the situation. Instead, he focused on preparing a strong legal defense. He drafted notes, gathered more evidence from the city office, and made a timeline of all events. By the end of the day, Ravi felt a mixture of relief and determination. Relief because he knew he had legal protection, and determination because he realized he had to stand up not just for himself, but for fairness and boundaries. He understood that this was more than just a fight with one person, it was about protecting his right to live peacefully on his own property. As Ravi looked around his little garden, he promised himself he would not let anyone threaten his home unjustly. He would face this challenge calmly and wisely, using law and evidence rather than anger. Tomorrow would be the day to plan the next steps carefully and ensure Karen could not take advantage of fear or confusion. Ravi went to bed that night feeling both cautious and ready. He knew the days ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that with careful planning and legal guidance, he could protect his home and live freely as he had always dreamed. The morning sun streamed into Ravi's small garden, lighting up the blue fence and the rows of fresh flowers. He felt a quiet determination. The letter from Karen and the HOA still weighed on his mind, but he knew he had to act wisely. He could not rely on hope or anger. He needed proof. Ravi began his day by collecting official documents. He visited the city office to check property records, including the boundaries of the HOA. Each paper he received confirmed what he already knew: his house was outside the HOA's jurisdiction. The boundary lines were clear, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Ravi smiled, feeling more confident. He returned home with stacks of maps and records. He carefully organized them on the dining table, creating a timeline of events. He included the date he purchased the house, the closing documents, and even pictures he had taken of the property. Every detail mattered. Next, Ravi turned his attention to Karen. He knew from her letter that she liked to assert control aggressively. He began searching online for public records and posts. He discovered that she had a history of trying to enforce HOA rules on houses outside the HOA. Several neighbors had complained about her attempts to dictate paint colors, garden designs, and fence styles. Ravi saved screenshots and notes of these posts, knowing they could be useful later. As Ravi worked, he realized the situation was not just about his property. Karen's pattern of overreach could affect others nearby. He felt a sense of responsibility. If he prepared carefully, he could not only protect his home but also prevent Karen from bullying other homeowners unfairly. Ravi also reached out to neighbors who lived near the HOA boundaries. He wanted to see if anyone else had faced similar problems. Some neighbors shared their experiences, confirming that Karen had tried to interfere with their properties as well. They had not taken legal action, but they were willing to provide statements if needed. This support encouraged Ravi. He realized that he was not alone in this fight. By late afternoon, Ravi had a clear plan. He would send a formal notice to the HOA and Karen, explaining that their authority did not extend to his property. He would attach maps, property records, and any evidence of Karen's previous overreach. He wanted the message to be clear: he knew his rights and would not be intimidated. Before sending the notice, Ravi spoke with Ms. Patel. She reviewed all the documents and evidence. "Ravi," she said, "you are building a strong case. Your documents show clearly that the HOA has no control over your property. This letter will put them on notice. If Karen continues to threaten you, we can take stronger legal action." Ravi felt a wave of relief. For the first time since receiving the letter, he felt in control. He carefully drafted the notice with Ms. Patel's guidance, making sure the language was professional and firm. He referenced local property laws and included maps showing the HOA boundary. Every word was intentional. The next morning, Ravi sent the letter. He chose email for speed but also printed a copy and sent it via certified mail to have a legal record. He attached all the evidence, clearly showing that he lived outside the HOA. He requested that any further communication be formal and in writing. For a few days, there was no response. Ravi focused on his home, painting the fence, planting more flowers, and organizing the garden. He felt a small sense of victory in having acted calmly and legally. But he knew Karen was persistent. Silence did not mean she had given up. While waiting, Ravi also prepared for the possibility that Karen might escalate the matter. He began making notes about potential legal steps, including filing complaints if she tried to harass him further. He reviewed HOA laws, city ordinances, and local court precedents. The more he learned, the more confident he became. In the evenings, Ravi documented everything meticulously. He wrote down phone calls, emails, and even interactions with neighbors. He understood that clear records could be invaluable if the situation escalated. He also noticed that documenting his steps made him feel calmer. Planning and preparation gave him a sense of control over the situation that anger could never provide. Ravi spent one evening reviewing all his evidence with Miss Patel again. She praised his thoroughness. "You are doing everything right," she said. "With this level of preparation, you are ready for any challenge she might throw at you. Remember, law and facts always speak louder than threats." By the end of the week, Ravi felt both cautious and confident. He knew Karen might continue her attempts to intimidate him, but he also knew that he had built a strong defense. The garden outside looked peaceful, but inside, Ravi was alert and ready. He understood that this was not just about his home, it was about standing up for his rights and making sure fairness prevailed. Ravi went to bed that night with a sense of purpose. He had prepared evidence, reached out to neighbors, and taken steps to protect his property. Tomorrow, he thought, would be the day to respond further if Karen tried to escalate. For now, he allowed himself a quiet moment to enjoy the blue fence and colorful flowers that he had worked so hard to protect. Ravi woke up early, the morning sunlight warming his backyard. The blue fence gleamed in the light, and the flowers swayed gently in the breeze. He felt proud of the home he had built for himself, but he also knew that peace was fragile. Karen's letter still hung over him like a shadow. He met with Miss Patel that morning in her office. She spread out the maps, emails, and evidence Ravi had gathered over the past week. "Ravi," she said, "we need to make our next move carefully. We are going to respond to Karen formally, using the law to protect your rights. This will show her that threats cannot replace facts." Ravi listened carefully. Miss Patel explained the legal strategy step by step. First, they would send a formal notice to Karen and the HOA, clearly stating that Ravi lived outside their jurisdiction. They would attach property maps, official city documents, and evidence of Karen's repeated overreach. Second, the notice would warn that if Karen continued harassment, Ravi could file a legal complaint, asking the court for protection and possible damages. Ravi felt a mix of determination and nervousness. This was not just a letter, it was a declaration. It would let Karen know that her authority ended at her HOA boundary and that she could not intimidate him. They began drafting the notice. Every word was precise and professional. Ravi wanted it to be firm but respectful, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Miss Patel emphasized that tone mattered as much as content. "We are not asking for permission," she said. "We are stating facts, using the law as our guide." Ravi added a clear explanation of his property's location, referencing official city maps. He included dates showing when he purchased the house and how it fell outside the HOA boundary. He attached screenshots of Karen's previous attempts to interfere with neighboring properties. Each attachment strengthened his case. After hours of careful work, the notice was ready. Ravi and Miss Patel reviewed it one last time. "This is strong," Miss Patel said. "It makes your rights clear and sets a legal precedent. Karen cannot ignore it without consequences." The next morning, Ravi sent the notice via certified mail and email. He kept copies for his records and made notes of the delivery confirmation. With this step completed, he felt a sense of relief, but he knew the real challenge might still be ahead. Karen was known for persistence. 3 days later, Ravi received a response. It was not from the HOA board, but from Karen herself. The email was long and full of complaints, claiming that Ravi was causing neighborhood disturbance and ignoring the HOA rules. Ravi read it calmly, without letting anger take over. He showed Miss Patel the message. Miss Patel smiled. "This is what I expected," she said. "She is trying to create pressure. The law is on your side. We respond with facts, not emotions." Ravi followed her advice. They drafted a reply that was short, clear, and factual. It restated that he lived outside the HOA and that any further attempts to control his property would be considered harassment. The email included a warning that continued threats could lead to legal action. Ravi sent the reply, confident that he had done everything correctly. The next days were tense. Ravi continued to work on his garden, paint the fence, and organize his home. Each time he looked at the blue fence, he reminded himself why he was fighting. It was not just about color or flowers, it was about standing up for his rights and refusing to be intimidated. Ravi also began preparing for the possibility that Karen might escalate to legal action. He reviewed court documents and small claims procedures with Ms. Patel. They discussed what evidence would be required, how testimony from neighbors could support his case, and how to respond if Karen tried to involve the HOA board. Ravi realized that preparation was more powerful than worry. During this time, he noticed that neighbors were watching. Some gave small smiles or nodded in encouragement. He realized that by standing firm, he was also setting an example. Karen's attempts to control properties outside the HOA could affect anyone nearby, and his actions were quietly reassuring others that it was possible to protect their homes. By the end of the week, Ravi felt a quiet confidence. The legal notice was sent, Karen had responded, and he had documented everything. The next step would depend on her actions, but Ravi knew he was ready. He had the law, evidence, and careful planning on his side. As he watered the flowers that evening, Ravi reflected on the journey so far. The garden looked brighter than ever, the fence glimmered under the sunset, and for the first time, he felt that he was truly in control. Karen's threats might continue, but he had learned that staying calm, gathering facts, and acting legally was the most powerful way to protect his home. Ravi went to bed that night with a sense of purpose. He knew the coming days could be challenging, but he was ready to face Karen legally, with clarity and confidence. For Ravi, this was not just about winning a fight, it was about ensuring justice and peace in the home he had built with care. Ravi had hoped that his legal notice would calm the situation, but he soon realized that Karen was not willing to back down. A few days after sending the notice, he noticed unusual activity. Flyers appeared near his property, claiming that he was violating neighborhood rules and urging residents to report him to the HOA. Ravi read them carefully and immediately documented every detail. The next morning, Ravi checked his email and found several messages from Karen. The tone was sharp, demanding, and full of accusations. She claimed that he was causing trouble for the neighborhood and insisted that he follow the HOA's rules despite living outside the boundaries. Ravi did not respond impulsively. Instead, he showed the emails to Ms. Patel, who advised him to maintain calm and rely on documented facts. It is normal for someone like her to escalate when they feel challenged, Ms. Patel explained. We respond with facts and evidence, not emotions. Anything she writes now can be used to strengthen your case. Ravi followed her advice. He carefully saved screenshots of the emails and printed copies of the flyers. He created a file labeled Karen's harassment and added dates, times, and all communications. With each piece of evidence, he felt more prepared for any possible escalation. Despite the tension, Ravi focused on his home. He spent the mornings tending to the garden and the afternoons painting the fence. These activities, which Karen had complained about, gave him a sense of normalcy and reminded him why he had moved there. His home was a place of peace, and he refused to let threats disturb it. Meanwhile, Karen tried to involve the HOA board directly. She called members and demanded that they take action against Ravi. Some board members were uncomfortable with her behavior, knowing that Ravi's property was clearly outside the HOA. Others were hesitant to challenge her directly, fearing conflict. Ravi learned about these calls through a friendly neighbor who had overheard parts of the conversations. This information reassured Ravi. He realized that Karen's power was mostly intimidation and loud complaints. Legally and factually, she had no authority over him. With this understanding, he felt more confident in his next steps. One afternoon, Ravi received a message from a neighbor who had previously faced similar harassment. The neighbor shared experiences of how Karen tried to dictate house paint colors, garden designs, and fence styles on properties outside her jurisdiction. He encouraged Ravi to continue documenting everything and assured him that standing firm was the right approach. Ravi felt supported and realized that he was not alone in this struggle. As the week passed, Karen's online posts grew more aggressive. She posted on neighborhood forums, claiming that Ravi was ignoring rules and trying to disrupt the community. Ravi carefully saved each post and added them to his growing evidence file. Every post showed that her focus was on control, not on legality or fairness. Ravi and Ms. Patel also discussed potential next steps. If Karen continued her harassment, they could file a legal complaint for harassment and seek protection orders. Ms. Patel reminded Ravi that the law was on his side and that careful preparation would ensure a strong position in court. Ravi took detailed notes and reviewed all documents, confident that they were building an unshakable defense. Despite the tension, Ravi maintained his daily routines. He painted, gardened, and even hosted a small gathering of close neighbors. These neighbors noticed Karen's aggressive behavior and quietly offered support. Ravi felt a sense of relief knowing that others were aware of the situation and understood that he was standing up for fairness. One evening, Ravi reflected on the events of the past week. Karen had escalated, sent aggressive emails, posted online, and tried to involve the HOA. Yet, Ravi remained calm. He realized that her actions only highlighted her overreach and provided more evidence of harassment. Every attempt she made to intimidate him was another reason to strengthen his legal case. Ravi went to bed that night feeling cautious but empowered. Karen might continue to try and intimidate him, but he had the law, evidence, and support of neighbors on his side. His home remained a place of peace, and he understood that standing firm with facts and preparation was the strongest response to bullying. He promised himself that he would not let fear dictate his actions. The coming days might be challenging, but he was ready to face whatever Karen tried next. He knew that with careful planning, he could protect his property, his peace, and his rights. Ravi had been managing Karen's attacks calmly, but he soon realized that facing her alone was more stressful than he expected. The constant emails, flyers, and online posts had created tension in his days. One morning, while watering his garden, he noticed a few neighbors watching from across the street. Some nodded in greeting, while others seemed hesitant. Ravi smiled politely and continued with his work. A few days later, a neighbor named Mrs. Kumar, who lived 2 streets away, knocked on his door. She introduced herself and explained that she had experienced similar harassment from Karen in the past. Karen had tried to control her garden and her fence colors, even though her house was technically outside the HOA boundaries. Mrs. Kumar praised Ravi for standing firm. "You are not alone," she said. "We have all felt her pressure, but no one has taken a clear stand. Your actions show that it is possible to protect your home legally." Ravi felt a wave of relief. He had thought he was facing this challenge by himself, but now he realized that others had also suffered quietly. He invited Mrs. Kumar to sit in his garden, and they discussed her experiences. She described Karen's persistent attempts to intimidate neighbors and how she had eventually given up to avoid conflict. Ravi took careful notes, knowing that these accounts could serve as supporting evidence if the situation escalated further. Soon after, another neighbor, Mr. Singh, approached Ravi. He explained that he had also faced Karen's interference, although he had not taken any formal action. Like Mrs. Kumar, he expressed support for Ravi and offered to testify if needed. Ravi was encouraged. With their accounts, he could show that Karen had a pattern of overstepping her authority. Ravi spent the next few days compiling these testimonies, along with the maps, documents, and screenshots he had already collected. Each piece of evidence made his case stronger and gave him more confidence. He also kept his daily routines intact, painting the fence and tending to the garden, showing Karen and others that he was not intimidated. Meanwhile, Karen continued her attempts to pressure him. She posted online, claiming that he was violating neighborhood norms. She tried to call the HOA board to take action against him. But this time, some board members privately contacted Ravi to express their discomfort with Karen's behavior. They admitted that she had gone too far and that they were hesitant to support her demands against him. Ravi realized that Karen's power was not absolute. Many people recognized that she was acting beyond her authority. With the support of neighbors and the HOA board's silent acknowledgement, Ravi felt a renewed sense of purpose. He met with Ms. Patel again to review the new testimonies and the evidence. "Ravi, this is excellent," she said. "The testimonies show that Karen's actions are not isolated. They establish a clear pattern of harassment. With this support, your position is even stronger." Ravi also reached out to other neighbors who lived near the HOA boundaries. Some were hesitant at first, afraid of confrontation. But after seeing Ravi's calm and strategic approach, several agreed to share their experiences and provide statements. He realized that standing up legally, rather than reacting emotionally, had encouraged others to come forward. As days passed, Ravi's evidence file grew. It included property maps, official documents, emails, online posts, flyers, and the detailed testimonies of neighbors. Each piece added weight to his position and showed that Karen's claims were baseless. Ravi felt a sense of pride. He was not only protecting his home but also helping others stand up against unfair control. Even in the evenings, Ravi kept organized. He reviewed each piece of evidence, ensured the dates were clear, and made notes of all communications. This careful preparation gave him confidence that if Karen decided to escalate to court, he would be fully ready. Ravi also noticed that Karen's online posts were being questioned by other community members. People were beginning to see that her complaints were not reasonable and that she was targeting neighbors unfairly. This subtle shift encouraged Ravi. He understood that facts and fairness would eventually carry more weight than noise and threats. By the end of the week, Ravi felt a quiet satisfaction. He had allies, evidence, and legal guidance. He realized that Karen's attempts to intimidate him were only making her position weaker. With patience and preparation, he was ready for whatever action she might take next. Ravi went to bed that night looking at his blue fence and vibrant flowers. He felt peace in knowing that he was not alone, that he had support, and that he was standing on solid ground legally. His home remained a place of calm, and he knew that with evidence and preparation, he could face Karen's next move with confidence. Ravi woke up early that morning with a mix of nerves and determination. Today was the day he would face Karen in court. For weeks, he had prepared carefully, gathering documents, property maps, emails, and neighbor testimonies. Ms. Patel, his attorney, had gone over every detail with him multiple times. Ravi knew that being calm and organized was his strongest advantage. When he arrived at the courthouse, the building looked large and intimidating. He could see Karen standing nearby, holding folders and talking loudly to anyone who would listen. Her presence was forceful, but Ravi reminded himself that facts and law mattered more than noise. He took a deep breath and followed Ms. Patel inside. The courtroom was quiet. The judge, a serious but fair-looking man, called the case and asked both sides to present their positions. Karen began first. She spoke quickly, insisting that Ravi was violating HOA rules and causing trouble for the neighborhood. She referenced her letters, her emails, and her social media posts, but she could not provide any legal proof that her authority extended beyond the HOA boundaries. When it was Ravi's turn, he remained calm. Ms. Patel stood beside him and presented their case clearly. She showed the judge the official property maps, proving that Ravi's house was outside the HOA boundary. She presented copies of the original deed, city documents, and a timeline of events showing Ravi's legal ownership. Then she submitted the evidence of Karen's previous attempts to control neighboring properties outside her HOA, including the neighbor testimonies Ravi had collected. The judge reviewed the documents carefully. He asked Ravi a few questions, and Ravi answered confidently, explaining when he bought the house and how he had maintained his property. Miss Patel emphasized that all actions taken by Ravi, including painting the fence and planting flowers, were fully within his rights as a property owner. Karen tried to interrupt a few times, but Miss Patel remained firm, keeping the focus on the facts and legal documents. The judge noted her behavior and reminded her to stick to the law. Ravi realized that her loud complaints were only weakening her position. As the hearing continued, Ravi felt a sense of clarity. Every document, every testimony, and every detail he had collected was helping his case. He saw the judge paying close attention to the maps and the official papers. It became clear that Ravi's property was indeed outside the HOA, and Karen had no legal authority over him. The judge asked Karen if she had any proof that the HOA rules applied to Ravi's property. She could not produce any. Her claims were based entirely on her personal opinions and her attempts to intimidate neighbors. The courtroom remained quiet as the judge reviewed the evidence once more. Finally, the judge spoke. Based on the documents presented and the testimony provided, it is clear that the property in question is outside the jurisdiction of the HOA. Therefore, any attempts to enforce HOA rules on this property are unlawful. The plaintiff's claims are dismissed. Ravi felt a wave of relief wash over him. Karen looked shocked and frustrated, realizing that her threats had no legal weight. The judge continued, ordering her to cease all attempts to contact or interfere with Ravi's property. He warned that any future harassment could result in additional legal action. As the courtroom emptied, neighbors who had come to show support quietly congratulated Ravi. Some smiled and nodded, sharing their relief that justice had been served. Ravi thanked them and felt grateful for their support. He realized that this victory was not just about protecting his home, but also about setting an example for fairness and standing up to intimidation. Outside the courthouse, Ravi took a deep breath. The sun was shining, and for the first time in weeks, he felt the weight of worry lift from his shoulders. He looked back at the building, remembering the tension and the careful preparation it took to reach this point. The law had protected him, and his calm, strategic approach had made all the difference. Karen left quickly, refusing to speak to anyone. Ravi did not feel anger toward her. He understood that her actions had come from a desire for control, but the law and truth had stood firm. He felt proud that he had remained calm, collected evidence, and acted within the rules to defend his home. Back home, Ravi walked through his garden, touching the petals of his flowers and looking at the freshly painted fence. Everything felt brighter and more peaceful than before. The victory was more than legal, it was personal. He had defended his home, his rights, and his peace of mind. That evening, Ravi sat on his porch, sipping tea and watching the sunset. The sounds of birds and a gentle breeze made him smile. The battle with Karen had ended, and life could return to normal. Ravi knew he had learned valuable lessons. Preparation, calmness, and reliance on facts were stronger than threats or intimidation. His home was safe, and he could finally enjoy it without fear. Ravi woke up to a bright morning with sunlight spilling across his garden. The air was fresh, and birds sang cheerfully. For the first time in weeks, he felt completely at peace. Karen's threats and the court case were behind him. The judge's ruling had made it clear, Ravi's home was safe, and he had every right to enjoy his property freely. He stepped outside, feeling the soft grass beneath his feet and the warm sun on his face. His blue fence gleamed proudly, and the flowers he had planted were vibrant and full of life. Ravi smiled. This garden had become more than just a hobby, it was a symbol of his persistence, patience, and victory over unfair pressure. As he tended to the plants, a few neighbors walked by, waving and smiling. Mrs. Kumar and Mr. Singh approached, offering congratulations. "You did the right thing," Mrs. Kumar said. "Standing up legally was the only way to stop her. You gave all of us courage." Ravi felt grateful. Their support had been a source of strength throughout the stressful weeks. he realized that his actions had not only protected his home but had also inspired others to stand up for themselves when faced with unfair authority. Word spread quietly through the neighborhood about the court's decision. People who had been wary of Karen's interference now felt reassured. Some neighbors who had suffered quietly from her past attempts to control homes began speaking up, sharing their own experiences with Ravi's encouragement. Ravi noticed that the community atmosphere had begun to change. There was less fear and more awareness that boundaries and fairness mattered. Ravi spent the morning fixing small details around the house. He painted a part of the fence that needed touch-ups and planted new flowers along the walkway. Every action reminded him that he was creating a home that reflected his own choices, free from outside control. Each bloom in the garden felt like a quiet celebration of his victory. Later, Ravi received a message from Miss Patel. She had filed the final legal documents to close the case officially. The confirmation made everything permanent. Karen would no longer be able to threaten him or interfere with his property in any way. Ravi felt a sense of relief and accomplishment. He had followed the law, stayed calm, and prepared carefully. His home, his sanctuary, was safe. Ravi also took a moment to reflect on what he had learned. The experience had taught him patience and the importance of facts and preparation. He realized that anger and impulsive reactions would not have helped. By acting calmly and legally, he had not only won the case but had also maintained his peace of mind throughout the process. That evening, Ravi invited a few supportive neighbors for tea in his backyard. They sat around the table, sharing stories and laughter. It was a simple gathering, but it felt meaningful. Ravi felt connected to his community in a way he had not before. The shared experiences and mutual support had created a sense of unity that made the neighborhood stronger. As the sun set, Ravi stood quietly in his garden, looking at the flowers swaying in the gentle breeze. He thought about the challenges he had faced, the threatening letters, the aggressive emails, and Karen's attempts to assert control. All of it had been stressful, but he had overcome it. He had not only defended his property but had also helped set a precedent for fairness. Ravi knew that life would continue with its usual ups and downs, but he felt ready for any future challenges. He had learned that preparation, calmness, and legal knowledge were powerful tools. Standing up for what was right did not mean acting out of anger, it meant acting with intelligence and patience. As night fell, Ravi sat on his porch, watching the stars emerge in the clear sky. The garden was quiet, the air cool, and the world felt calm. His home was no longer just a place to live, it was a symbol of resilience, justice, and the power of standing firm against unfairness. Ravi smiled to himself, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Karen's threats had ended, the court had ruled in his favor, and his home was safe. Peace had returned, and it was stronger than ever. The garden, the fence, and the quiet streets around him now belonged fully to him, not just legally, but in spirit. Finally, Ravi went inside, feeling content. He knew that challenges could arise again someday, but he also knew that he had the tools and mindset to face them. For now, he allowed himself to relax completely, enjoying the home he had fought to protect and the peace he had earned through courage, preparation, and determination. Life after victory was calm, fulfilling, and filled with the quiet satisfaction of justice achieved. Ravi's home was not just safe, it was his, exactly as he wanted it, a place of freedom, beauty, and peace.